easier.
I agree.
Because I have to shuffle people in and out of the room.
You're kidding.
Because if we have 3 different groups, we all can't fit at one time. And I don't mean.
And you wouldn't fit in here. You are.
All right, folks, we are live. Thank you all for joining us at 4:30 for our pre-meeting. Mr. Roberts, would you like to lead us as we dive into these various retreat topics? Hopefully, we can clean the rest of this up.
Yeah, it may help. I didn't hit the button, so yes, I would like to start us off. There are various topics that.
Thank you all for joining us at 4:30 for our pre-meeting. Mr. Roberts, would you like to?
All right, it was test me out.
We're getting there.
Had to get Jackie to grab my eyeballs. I left them in the room, so. Thank you, Jackie. So just repeat again, I think. Who knows how many times I repeated this, but various retreat topics that we had left over. And what we don't get to tonight, Mayor, we will try to finish addressing at the next pre-meeting, if at all possible. I think we had a few listed, items 9, 10, 11, 13, 16, 17, 18, and 26. And we'll tell you what those actually are and go over those. And if we can get through all of them, great. You should have had the what I would say, the various retreat topic listing, hopefully in your packet, I hope. And hopefully the public is aware of exactly which items we're talking about. So we'll read through those, and we'll just start with number 9. And I think Jackie may tackle this one, but number 9 is break out all contract services individually for the upcoming budget workshops. And I think, Jackie, you're going to tackle that one?
Kim or whoever's running the attachments. I hope there's 2 items labeled number 9. One of them is an example. Thank you for being my victim, Stephen Trott. One of them is an example of what directors turn in every year with budget. I assume he's turned in his this past Friday because Patty said that it was submitted, but I've printed for you from FY22. Every department creates this detail sheet. Not everybody's is one sheet like Stephen's. If you'll air it down a little bit so everybody can see the total sheet. So Stephen's telling you here of the 42,385 that he asked for originally in contract services, 20 for this purpose, 20 for that purpose, and so on and so forth. It's absolutely true. Everybody submits that. If you want that included in the manager's recommended budget packet, if memory serves, that packet's a little bit shorter. If you want it included in that for each department, just tell me. We're glad to do it. It's printing a few more pages and assembling them. It's not the end of the earth. Will you show, I hope there's a PDF of another document. This is how we plan to spend money. It's as accurate as we can make it. I also printed for you actually our general ledger detail that shows you for every single department, including HFFA and Electricities, how they spent money in contract services. Up at the top, Bobby, this is not a full year's worth. It's printed, I don't know, one day last week or the week before. I don't see the date on it, but it tells you everything that we've got in every contract services account so far this fiscal year. And does it say at the top somewhere how many pages it is? One of 26 pages. So in my opinion, if you're interested in what's going on in the account, I'd want you to see the actual expenditures, but if you want budget, you can have it. So, four hands, you can have one or either or both. We have sent this out before when it's been requested. It's 26 pages, it's printed by department, we'll do whatever you'd like to do.
Unger?
Just a quick question for clarification. That first page that you showed, is that representative of one line on this sheet?
I'd say it's representative of several pages on that sheet.
Okay,
When
so
we-
it's an accumulation of
Ordinarily-
individual lines
Right.
on the other one?
Ordinarily, what you would get is Stephen's line item request on one page, and it would say salaries X number and FICA X number, and it would have one line item. It would say contract service, it would say 42,385. And so he has created for us a detail of what makes up that 42,385.
Thank you.
And I think the point where Jackie's making is, some folks want tons of details, some folks doesn't want tons of details, so we can provide whatever detail you want, but we don't want to print thousands and thousands of pages for you to throw in the trash.
Right.
The last time we sent this out, when it was requested, we sent it out via email, so we didn't print it at all. But if you want this included in either the final adopted budget, or if you want it included in the manager's recommended, just let us know.
So folks,
A few more pages, a little bit more work, we'll do it size 4.
Commissioner Phillips.
So I would like to see it in the manager's recommended budget, and I asked that because my first go on the board, I had so many itemized questions and had, we had more information. I don't think I would have wasted staff's time as much. It might cause more questions,
Right.
but I think knowledge is power, and I don't want to speak on everyone's behalf, but I think we should all have the same amount of knowledge, and how we absorb it is up to us.
So question, Commissioner Phillips, is this what you're seeing now on the screen, what you would like, that level? Or would you rather see the other sheet, this level?
I personally like this sheet because it's by department and then it has more explanation than reading, because I know coding and all that and acronyms can really get in the way of things. If we could do this by department and just have a breakdown, I feel like that could really help all of us digest even the manager's recommended budget better, because we can have references to go back to.
Happy to produce whatever you'd like to have, and we'll produce this if this is what you want. But the other detailed version has, I would say, comparable data on it, and the fact that it's 26 pages tells you it's by department. 10, 4,200 at the top, that's telling you that's general government. And so under the column that says year-to-date expended, that's telling you who the vendor is. We're happy to produce whichever you prefer. My guess is by department, it's probably going to be an additional 14, 15 pages. Happy to produce it.
Additional from what we're looking at right now?
So the first page, that's just the engineering version. When we do every single department, police is at least 2 pages. Welcome, chief. Most departments are just going to be 1 page. General government's going to be 1 page. There's probably a line item in the governing body. I don't remember what's in it. Most departments will be 1 page, but police, off the top of my head, I assure you is 2 pages. It's $750,000. I'm sure there's just 2 pages.
Yeah, we
So-
really don't care, it's whatever the board wants.
So I think that you have options. You can sit down and meet with staff and walk through as you were asking those questions. I know every year I would highlight, and so what is in contract services this year? Because every year kind of is a little bit different. Or you can have pages printed out like this, or pages printed out like that. I think that it's entirely up to how you want to work, but if you collectively decide that you want printed pages, y'all just need to figure out exactly what you want to see.
Please
Commissioner
be,
Boone?
contract services details, what I'd call it. Can I add? Please be flexible with us, because our directors are bright and they think of everything they can, but there are things that come up during the year that we didn't budget for. And so maybe we didn't need on-call surveying and appraisals of 20 grand. We only spent 16 grand. If you needed 4 grand for something else, we would have done that. What comes to mind is the tear down of what I'm going to call the old dentist office. I don't think we ever budgeted for that, but I'm confident it got charged to 1 year's contract services. You adopt budget at the department level. And so if we run out of money in one line item and need more money in it, we'll just move money from one line item to another. So it's a smart, educated guess, but it's, I bet Anthony's house and cart's never 100% accurate. That's all I have.
I like this one up here because I think it's user-friendly. I know the other one has a lot of information, but this one kind of lays it out, and it makes a lot more sense to me, so I like this one.
Good deal. We'll get that to you. I would ask, Mayor, we skip 10, and the only reason I say that, Commissioner Kidwell has much better things to do tonight than to be here. And I know this was one of the topics he brought up, so I'd prefer not to address it when he's not here. And those numbers are not, the 25K to 150K are not what we have anyway in place. So I want to make sure everybody gets the appropriate information and you make a decision. So I'd prefer to push that one to next time when he's here and address it.
Anthony?
I think that'd be fair.
I'm happy to shut up and not talk about this, but on that list of documents, there is number 10, that's an Excel document. You ask us to produce for you, I think quarterly, a list of what's spent. I'm going to say I'm going to take that on. We've not been awesome at it, and so since you adopted the policy that said we should report after the fact to you the things that Anthony had signed over, whatever, Anthony, was it 150? I don't remember, but if you can, Bobby, can you go over to the far right column? It has an amount column on it, and so everything highlighted in yellow here are things that we should have reported to you. Everything below that, over 300,000, theoretically should have come to you all, the board, and so here's a list of those contracts, and we're going to get better at getting that to you. I just wanted to put that out there because this is less about the contract authority and more about we're going to get better at getting you a copy of this Excel document.
What you hear us talk about next time is, if you recall, there were certain, with the new authority, there was some concern about, well, okay, if we do this, Anthony, we want to do this for a period of time and look at it, see how many contracts would you actually be approving? And I guess Jackie's saying here that amount of time, what's highlighted in yellow is what would apply. But we'll come back to you at the next pre-meeting, bring back this information, tell you what the policy actually said, what it did say, what we changed it to, and then what was the impact. So stay tuned.
Sounds good.
And so I think this, Patty gives you a little bit more detail when she gives you quarterly financial statements at quarter end, say September and December, March. You don't get June, but my trigger is going to be when I get that from her, I'll just generate this and send it out to you. So you'll start getting this on a more regular basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Jackie. So number 11 is establishing Huntersville's identity as a community. And Mayor, I'm going to somewhat punt to you on that one.
Because this was mine. It's probably no surprise to the board. I've talked about this quite a bit. As Huntersville's continues to grow, I will say our identity is being dictated by others around us, not by us. And one of the things that I would like to do is create a task force with some citizens and maybe even the communications team and start taking a look at who we are. And I would like to bring that information back to you. But at the same time, I would like to kind of get a nod from you that you are also in agreement that we need to figure out who we are. I don't want to create something and go out and do a lot of work if you don't feel that it's also important. I think that it is important to hear from you as well. But if you are in agreement, we can get that started here soon. I don't know about you, but when I hear, oh, Huntersville's a bedroom community to Charlotte, that's not our identity. That's not who we are. I don't think it's who we want to be. Different than if I say Davidson, the immediate connection is college, and if I say Cornelius, the connection's Lake. I don't want to say Huntersville and people say, oh, bedroom community to Charlotte. We should have a better sense of self than that. But I'd like your thoughts.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think it's timely to start this conversation with the 150th coming up. I feel like we're kind of getting the groundwork ready for like the next 150 years. So I would like to do that, and I think it doesn't have to be a big ordeal, but there needs to be something, because being, the suburb to Charlotte isn't really the town I grew up in.
Right, we have a lot, and we have a lot to offer, and we just need to figure out what that looks like. I know when Hickory rebranded, looked back at their identity, and they said, oh, somebody help me, that there's a tagline to it, which I know will come with, but it was more like well-crafted, Hickory well-crafted. And I thought, well, how cool is that? It's a nod to who they were as a furniture, builder, but then who they are becoming and who they are and who they plan to be in the future. Commissioner Partee.
Mayor, I like the idea, and I like the idea of forming a commission, as you have mentioned. And also, maybe we can get the schools involved, the students here in Huntersville, because they have a great idea. They live here, they're our future. So I think that's a possibility.
Okay,
They can give us some suggestions on how we can identify our community.
I like that. Commissioner Munger.
So I definitely appreciate the idea, and I don't want to be the total party pooper here, but one of my concerns is we have the 150 committee, we have the downtown plan steering committee, and if we create another committee that there may be that kind of conflict for trying to produce that identity. It's just something to keep in mind. I don't want us to have too many committees taking on too many different things that kind of overlap. But, yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's something that we need to take into consideration. Commissioner,
So why don't we look at, I'm using so because I'm getting it from Clarence Munger here, Commissioner Munger. Why don't we have a contest? Have the schools, we put it out, that we're having a contest to rename or identify the township. Therefore, we won't have to, you're absolutely right, Commissioner Munger, but that was also an avenue where students can get involved, just have a contest.
could I make a suggestion that we can start with the communications committee and get them to sit down and try to work through some next steps? I like those ideas. I think we can present those to the committee and let them vet through them and see where we can go from there and create a framework and how to get there.
I do worry about, like Commissioner Munger said, about having too many hands in the pot doing the same thing, because I do know with the Downtown Steering Committee, that was a topic that came up, that people talked about, like rebranding. I mean, no, it was just downtown, but if we have a brand for all of Huntersville and then a very different brand for downtown or vice versa. So somehow, like, I guess preliminarily going to the Communications Committee, figuring out what they want to do, but I can see where he's coming from if we have that. And then downtown is talking about it, and then I would assume the 150th would be talking somewhat similarly.
Yeah, then that's possible. I'm not sure where they're at currently since they just kicked off in their planning, but it's something that we do need to be very cognizant of, that we do have a lot of things happening at the same time.
Commissioner Phillips is right, with that coming up, time is of the essence right now, so just kind of figuring out that perfect way to do it.
Right. Commissioner Boone?
Thank you. I do have a few comments on this committee. I think that if you decide to go this route, it should be a small committee. I think the communication committee is getting way too much on their plate. You got the same people that are involved in the focus of this town, and I think that's not the direction we need to go. As far as getting the schools involved, getting CMS involved, I think that they've got their their game plan for their school set already. And for you to go in there and say, hey, we would like you to come up with that, I don't know if that's doable or not, if that's something that we can even reach out to. But a small committee, I'd go for it, but nothing really too big. And I don't want to get bogged down of, this 2 people here, you're 2 people, well, they're not over from town. Let's just get somebody that can get in here and get this done.
Sounds good. We'll bring back something back to the board, if that's all right with everyone, and it sounded like it was. Mr. Roberts?
Number 13, affordable/workforce housing in Huntersville, considering, and these, are, I think, a combination of sort of items around housing, but affordable workforce housing in Huntersville, considering comprehensive neighborhood improvement program, like CNIP. I think Bobby may have some slides and information on that, and kind of tell you where some of the discussions, et cetera, that we've been having.
Anthony. Greetings. Put together a couple of slides. There were, I guess, maybe 2 or 3 items on the original list of topics. We talked about grants that might be out there, opportunities for housing assistance, and then the CNIP program. And initially, we weren't familiar with that, did some research. One of the grants we looked at was Golden Leaf. Pretty limited, unfortunately, with what we'll be eligible for under Golden Leaf. I know we've got a lot on the agenda tonight, so I'm going to fly through that. But the CNIP program is a comprehensive neighborhood improvement program. You can see the goals of the program to the right, and really that first bullet, it's a multi-neighborhood program that looks at investment, job creation, all kinds of quality of life, business factors. And then the important thing, point you to that second bullet there, the City of Charlotte has used neighborhood improvement bonds every year since 2014, 20 million, 40 million, 30 million, and then this is based on their website, 30 million proposed in 2020. It hadn't been updated, but I'm sure it's been approved. That was approved too. So the substantial investments being made by the City of Charlotte in these areas, Central Albemarle Shamrock, Prosperity Village, which is just down the road here, Sunset Beatties Ford, Rosl's Ferry and West Trade, Whitehall and Airsley, and then South Park. So you can see these areas really kind of run the gamut with a variety of regional nodes and employment centers, connections to transit, as well as a variety of demographics. I don't know that we're here yet, but you talked about a lot of plans and other things that are going on. Maybe something in the downtown plan rises to this level of attention that you'd want to give it. But wanted to kind of address and share information about what this CNIP program looks like. Some of the other questions that were kind of wrapped up in that initial list of topics there were support for our residents with regards to home weatherization, road upgrades, sidewalks, landscape beautification, solar panels, assistance with utilities, tankless hot water heaters, CO2 detectors, and smoke detectors. There is a state program for weatherization assistance locally. It's administered by the Blue Ridge Community Action. And we've been in touch with them. Their Charlotte office closed when COVID started. They're working on getting that back up and running, but they still have been providing services. Road upgrades could be a CDBG project, but it will depend on eligibility and the eligible beneficiaries there. Same with sidewalks, landscape beautification projects. Certainly CDBG could apply, but we've done some, or our community has seen a number of churches through the years in different parts of town reach out, as well as other community volunteers and the Adopt a Street program. Solar panels and tankless hot water heaters, probably a little bit limited on private support for those. And then the CO alarms and the smoke detectors, fire department typically has a limited stock for seniors or folks in need to be able to provide those out. Other assistance that exists for homeowners currently in the community, Mecklenburg County DSS does a crisis intervention program, as well as kind of being an intake for the low-income energy assistance and the household water assistance program, and just the information to access these services either online or in person is here on this slide. Other grant programs specifically as it relates to home-based assistance or affordable home ownership. The Home Fund, which is administered locally by the City of Charlotte, we participate in a regional consortium, and so that allows the the consortium to get a slightly larger pool of money than the city would as an entitlement just by itself. They accept RFPs on a regular basis submitted by a sponsoring municipality. It's been a while since anyone has approached us or we have been aware of anybody looking for home funds. Those are typically used for home construction, rehab of owner-occupied housing, down payment assistance, rental housing. TBRA, you may hear the acronym, that's tenant-based rental assistance. City of Charlotte is active in each of those areas. In the past, we've used funds from this program to help get homes built in Norman Park, and are in talks with a couple of our nonprofits right now that are looking at continuing to develop affordable housing in Norman Park. Haven't made any official asks or submittals to the consortium yet, but that's something we're working on. The other one is CDBG. It's a little bit broader than the home program. It focuses on more community development than just home ownership and then the rental assistance. Activities must meet national objectives, benefit low and moderate income persons, prevention or elimination of slums or blight, and then address community development needs because existing conditions pose a serious or immediate threat to the health and welfare of the community. Last week, I believe it was, the county held their public hearing to update its annual action plan. I think me and maybe one other person might have been the only people that were on for that hearing, but we do participate in the county's program. It allows for, we've used it in a mix of ways in the past. We've done a number of critical home repair and scattered site home rehab projects. And then it's also the funding source for the Huntington Green project. And I made a note there. We will be seeking additional funds in coming years to help offset increases to that Huntington Green sidewalk project. But those are two key ways we've used the CDBG program recently. And then the note at the bottom there, as economic prosperity continues throughout the county, it's going to be harder to determine that LMI benefit. As we kind of told you through the ARPA, the lack of qualified census tracts and things like that, not just a 100-tool challenge. It will be tougher to get sort of larger scale projects within the county CDBG program. Will be some more specific one-off type opportunities we'll have to look for. Our partners, a lot of these services are not provided directly through the town. They come through nonprofits locally. Hope House and Habitat are your key for affordable housing, emergency home repair, also Habitat, and then a variety of services provided by nonprofits with Caterpillar Ministries serving Huntington Green, Community Health Clinic really serving all of Huntersville and North Meck, as well as Ada Jenkins doing the same, Angels and Sparrows Soup Kitchen, and then our churches are often active in our neighborhoods with cleanups and other assistance. And certainly the last little note there in red, if there are other services that are in need from our community or other opportunities, we're always trying to connect with nonprofit partners so that we can connect to resources and connect to our community. As we continue to grow and expand our own internal capacity, we know we can't do everything, and really leaning on those nonprofit partners is critical. And that's it.
Yes.
Thanks, Bobby. This is my bullet that I presented, and I came in and sat down with you, and you covered all these issues with me, and I appreciate the presentation. It's understandable that we have several communities that are underserved, and that was just my way of making sure that we service and we have the agencies that will help service these communities, not to duplicate services with the county of Mecklenburg County. I realize they have the same programs that overlap with us also. So, moving forward, I just think that it's important that we stay in contact with these two communities. And when it comes to affordable housing, on top of that, it covers all ethnicities and all incomes. And I think it's very important that we try to look into where we can grab land, possibly, and have Habitat build some homes, and we have a lottery and so forth, so that folks can see that we are paying attention. Thanks, Bobby, for the presentation.
I would say that I also had affordable housing on my list. This is one of mine, and probably want to keep United Way in that mix as well as we continue to work through opportunities within the community. I've reached out to the mayors of Cornelius and Davidson, because I know that they both are, and their communities are having similar conversations or have had similar conversations, and wanting to see if there's an opportunity maybe for the North Mech Alliance to look at affordable housing holistically, to have some conversations, to see what, I know Cornelius they just did a housing study. They had, let me find my notes here. According to Mayor Washam, they were looking at possible rental assistance and some other things that they were looking at in regards to workforce housing. And so maybe there's some opportunity there for us to have conversation around and see what we can do together to meet a need in regards to workforce and affordable housing. Anybody else have some conversation around affordable housing, Commissioner Munger?
So, as we know, we went through the budget preliminary, and one of the things we decided was on the ARPA funds, we had $17 million of funds. And for those, for the expediency and best practice, we went ahead and set aside those funds for storm sewer and the up to $10 million we could just take. With that in mind, when we did that, I believe the essence was we would address issues such as this through non-restricted budget funds. And so I would urge the board to seriously consider the fact that we did take in $17 million of ARPA funds, and we have funding available to support things like this. So I'm very interested in us pursuing a number of these things.
Thank you. Commissioner Boo?
Thank you. Bobby, I got one question. Are we looking for just 2 or 3 homes to build and rental assistance? Or are we looking for some type of neighborhood where there's 100 to 200 homes? Is that what we're looking for? Yes, sir.
I don't mind addressing it. Actually, looking at multiple options. I know the county is, we've had some conversations, Bobby and I, and maybe some of the board members, have been talking to Pottstown community. I know they've had meetings with them looking in that area. There's some, I'd say, areas that you may be able to do a 15 lot, type subdivision. There's nothing of mass scale. There's also been talk about even what I'd say the big Torrance Lytle High School. Obviously, that's dilapidated, but they have talked about there has been opportunities that have gone away, but, may come back of possibly rebuilding and maybe having some type of townhouses, I don't know about apartments, those kind of things, but those type units possibly there. There's some, what I'd call smaller 1 and 2 lot type things. We did some projects with Habitat and Hope House. Hope House a little bit different, not the same as Habitat, but, they partner on a lot of things where, you get in the door at Hope House and you may move into a Habitat house. It depends. But we have partnered in subdivisions on a few lots here and there on that. We have some other lots that the town owns that may be some possibilities that we're looking at that Bobby and I are talking about bringing back to the board. So a little bit of mix of all of the above. We haven't had any, what I'd say, 150 lot. Most of our stuff is probably 15 lot and smaller, is what we've been looking at and or talking to the county about. But there may be other opportunities out there. There are, one last one, I know the project that was before the board was looking at possibly some funding, Bobby. You may want to.
Yeah, the senior housing out on Beatties Ford Road that spoke to you.
Mosaic.
I know they've already engaged the city to talk about the potential of home funds. But any requests they make would have to come through us, and certainly we would look to the board to make sure the board was supportive of that project before we endorsed any such request. But that ultimately, that down payment assistance would help them offset just some of the financing need to make it affordable.
Mr. Robertson, I have a follow-up question. If we're going to do something like this, are we going to have to increase the density of this area?
No, sir. what we're working on is not calling for any of that right now. I mean, any of that kind of stuff where density has to increase, pretty much anything we talk about is gonna have to come back to the board. If we're giving land away, for lack of better terms, in partnership with one of these organizations, home funds for a larger development, all of those things will have to come back to the board. These are not things that Bobby or Anthony will be able to pull a trigger on without coming back to the board. So you will see onesie, twosies, 15s, 150 lot apartment complex, whatever it may be. You will have the final say-so on those kind of things.
I would just encourage the board, as you continue to have those conversations around those ARP funds, that you have a strategy, that it's not just, meeting a quick need here and there, but that you're purposeful about it, and that you figure out where you really want to, where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck, right, and meeting the needs within the community. Commissioner Phillips?
So we need to be like hopeful and mindful, because come April, Habitat is going in-house with Ada Jenkins. So where there were two entities that kind of talked are now going to be talking a lot, and that's exciting, and we need to look forward to that. Because I know, we have these conversations and they're drab and they're depressing because it's real life, but there is this small little light right there. And also something that the board needs to be more mindful of, when we are talking with developers and companies and things like that, maybe encouraging them to take vouchers. Shelter Plus Care is one of the most important voucher programs in Mecklenburg County, and they are having a housing shortage. Most of the housing for Shelter Plus Care seem to be in the Belmont neighborhood of Charlotte and other areas that are now getting gentrified. And it's created a massive shortage to the point Shelter Plus Care put an event out begging realtors, landowners, please possibly be partners with us. Up here, I think I only know of one place that takes that voucher, and the waiting list is insane. So those are the things we have to keep in mind too. We can do a lot of great stuff, but as hard as I am on the county and the state, they do have programs, but when you have programs that can't be met because of a housing shortage, that's a bigger discussion too.
One of the things that Charlotte's looking at right now is helping those in the underserved communities, especially our seniors, stay in their homes by giving them the ability to build accessory homes on their property. So if they can prove that it's the income that they would get from that accessory home helps them to stay in the home, or they're building this accessory home in order to provide affordable housing, then they're helping, kind of fast track those projects through their planning department, et cetera. So just trying to help them get to where they can age in place. And so that's a possible option for us to look at as well. One of the other things that Charlotte's doing right now is a stay-in-place pilot for seniors, which provides them property tax relief and also critical home repair, so that those homes don't go into disrepair, to ensure that they can stay and live out their years in their home. So I will be interested to watch Charlotte and see what they do with that pilot, see how that works for them, and maybe that's an option for us to look at as well. Just throwing ideas out there on the table. Commissioner Munger.
So I'd like to ask this board to dedicate the pre-meeting on April 4th to this specific topic, or call a special meeting, because I don't want us to lose momentum on this. We have funds that can be spent for this. We should sit down and have a discussion, and we should hammer something out and have something to carry forward that actually is tangible.
Commissioner Munger, are you talking only affordable housing, workforce housing, or are we looking at
This
other?
specific, everything that was presented here, because there was a number of broad topics. There was workforce housing, there was improving and repairing existing housing, there was nonprofits, there was everything. This is a beautiful presentation. It had everything that I think we should be addressing.
So I think it's a good idea, but the wrong date.
Okay.
Well, what I would like to do is let Habitat get situated into Ada Jenkins, and maybe we could have the both of them, give them like a month to get settled in, find their groove, and then maybe a month after that, then we could do it so that maybe they could be here with us, and they can tell us like yes, no, maybes, and we're not just going on dreams and ambitions.
My only concern is budget, and that's the only, it has to fit into that budget
I
timeframe.
will say that United Way is also going to be meeting with these communities up here, in all three towns. And I talked with Catherine today, and they are looking at possibly hosting that in the beginning of April. So it may be helpful for us to also hear from the residents about what their real needs are and kind of solidify those.
Can I just ask, Jackie's not here anymore. When would we have to have something together to be able to get it into the budget?
Yeah, and I wouldn't worry too much about the budget, and even the ARP funds. There's so many different pots of monies that we're going after. Like Bobby talked about, home funds, et cetera. All these things on here you see right before you right now, the emergency home repairs and different things like that. Oh, I don't know what that's mine over here trying to ring, sorry. So I don't know what that vibrating was. There's so many different pots of funds we're going after, and we continue to go after those regardless of the budget process. We're looking at emergency home repair, winterization, all those type things. So I wouldn't worry about the budget, ARP funds, and those kind of things. We even talked about, supplanting and those kind of things. So just don't get hung up on ARPA. We are pushing these agencies, all these agencies, Bobby listed, a lot of them are already applying for funds through Mecklenburg County. We're having, constant conversations with them. So whenever you're ready to have discussion, I'm okay with what Commissioner Phillips said.
We'll get the tools in the toolbox to try to make it.
And the second part of it probably is momentum. We're all thinking it right now. If we push it out till August, September, October, it'll be,
I would say May.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm fine with May. I didn't mean to imply, but yeah.
And Mayor, if Bobby will send all this out, make sure we obviously email this all to you, we can post it on our site and all, but if there are needs in the community right now, if there's someone that needs home repairs, et cetera, I'm telling you, we're looking for that, the agencies are looking for that. The problem is getting to these folks and making sure they're aware of it. They're ready, a Habitat, home funds, et cetera, there's tons of funds that do the work.
And I think that you bring up a great point, because we've all pushed out a lot of things lately, right? Have the Habitat home repair, the Realtor Care Day, that got pushed out. And I wonder if if it's resonating with folks, if we're actually making a connection. Are they getting it, and are they applying? That's another question, because short of us all taking a street and knocking on doors and, encouraging folks.
do that.
Getting the information out there, that's something that is,
And that's another part
critical.
of the meeting we have with Commissioner Barty. I'll throw you on the spot. Since you offered to help us take things to churches, and we asked some of the same questions. We want to make sure these are opportunities to help folks. We know there are needs out there, but we don't always know if our communications and our methods are reaching the people who need the services. So thank Commissioner Barty in advance for offering to help us get stuff out to churches, and we're willing to try whatever we can to get it to the right folks.
Information, Bob. I need more flyers, whatever you have.
Get it.
Yeah, thank you.
so can we come back and have this conversation again in May?
And between now and then, as we're kind of taking this and adding to it, if you have specific questions or things you're hearing, or you want to make sure it gets addressed or come up from our end as staff, side of that presentation and discussion, just let us know.
It would be helpful if I can't manage all the things now. Could you guys keep an eye on the county's budget? Because if there's need be that we need to advocate as a board and go down there and speak at a meeting, we need to do that.
And if we're aware that there are certain agencies, and Bobby's keeping track, because I know some of these agencies have, but if you're aware of certain agencies that are applying for funds in Mecklenburg County, that'd probably be helpful for us too. And we may not necessarily know, but that may be where we can advocate too.
And we get tied up sometimes the services these agencies are providing are a little more statutorily in the county's slate of services. They don't necessarily fit as clean and black and white in the town side of things. So certainly pushing opportunities out to agencies for the ARPA funds from the county, as well as when they do their general funding for nonprofits. We typically push that out too, because those social services, all that fits right under the county as opposed to the town.
But it's going to also be important that we get that information so that we can then go and advocate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Ready to move to the next one? All right. Number 16, consider dividing commissioner seats into 4 districts and 2 at large. I think we have a presentation on that one, Bobby? I recall, maybe it was the last session or the session before, I'm trying to remember. I think this was more of I know one of the commissioners or 2 brought this up this time, but I want to say Commissioner Walsh at the time, maybe I brought this up at a previous board meeting, and I think Mr. Munger may have brought this up this time, not throw him on the spot. But we had actually, Mr. Walsh, or either I did a presentation on this before, and I don't know if we got a clicker, Bobby, or whether you can operate it for me or somebody. Maybe Commissioner Hines, maybe he could do it for us, I don't know.
You need it up here.
I'm good right here.
So, Bobby, can I work it from here? Or?
Yeah, if you want it, I'll be glad to.
Yeah,
Out of the way.
if I can. All right, we'll see what happens. But obviously, there's many options for boards to consider. And I won't spend too much time on this because there's a process you go through. Let me just see if I can go back to, Wrong button. Wrong button. Make sure I get this thing right. Yeah, this thing has got all right. Bear with me for a second. Oh, man, somebody got fancy. So currently, we all know where we're at, but this is probably more for the general public. We all know where we're at, a mayor, 6 commissioners, nonpartisan, and we serve right now 2-year terms. Everyone's the same term, everyone's reelected when it comes up in November, and we all serve at large. There's several modes of elections permitted in North Carolina municipalities. You can have all members at large, and I'm going to kind of flow through this pretty quick, because I would probably say you need to think about this more before I doubt you're going to give me a lot of direction on this tonight. All members elected at large. You have single-member districts, and I won't try to explain all these because it'll take a little bit of time. Single-member districts and at-large represented combined. You have weak residential districts, nomination by all voters and elected by all voters. Weak residential districts at-large represented combined. You have sort of half and half. And you have strong residential districts with nominations by district voters, but elections by all voters. And then you have strong residential districts and at-large representatives combined. So don't want to get into all those because I'm sure you're going to want to study those and decide, well, maybe we want to go this way. There's going to be a lot more discussion from the board before we go down any of these paths. But if you go down some of these paths, this is a little bit old data. We haven't updated this. This was kind of telling you what some of the other municipalities in North Carolina do, sort of in our population range. Obviously, these are old population numbers because I think this is probably a year or 2 old. So we have not updated these. I doubt any of these have changed. We could do a quick, but if any of these have changed the way they do things, it's probably maybe one out of all these. But I doubt any of them have changed the way they do things. So you can kind of see what how many board members they have, whether the mayor's elected to 2 or 4-year terms, and then you can kind of see how the board seats are, whether they're at large, whether it's a at large / district, whether it's a district, whether it's at large alone, whether it's a combination, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can see the terms for the actual board members, whether it's 2 years, whether it's 4 years. And then you can see, are they partisan, whether it's primaries, et cetera. And then you'll see some of the general notes on the side. Like I said, I won't spend yes, ma'am.
Mr. Roberts, under term, if it's 4S, is that 4-year staggered terms?
Yes. So I'll keep moving. This is like basic. I won't go through the pluses and minuses and cons and pros. I mean, we all probably got our opinions on what the positives are. I'm just going to roll through those pretty quick. You know, some negatives on district elections. It depends on, some of them are exact same, what's positive is negative, so. And there's multiple ways you can achieve this, depending on where you go. You could actually, I don't think this board would do that, but you could look at, if I recall, you could ask for a charter, amendment of charter by referendum. You don't have to go that route, but I'd imagine if you were going to do something like that, that would be the route you would take. I don't think the board is going to make a decision up here to say, yeah, let's just change it ourselves. I'd imagine that would be more of a referendum. And I think when we were looking at this before, this is more of an example. How could you set up districts? And I think these are sort of based on, some police district boundaries at the time. Ultimately, when you go through, if you were to go down some district route, you have to look at, population and things like that. When you're looking at it, try to even out the population. I can't have 10,000 people and I'm just picking on Stacy's district and 1,000 in Lance's. Obviously, we got to balance that out. So not going to spend a lot of time on this. Certain statutes that apply. We even had a timeline if you want to go through some of that. Just tells you how you amend your ordinance, et cetera. So basic information that we'll have this, we can provide this for you. You can study it. If you have questions, call me, email me. We can get you all the information you want on that. But I'd imagine we're not going to make any earth-shattering decisions tonight on something like this.
No, but I think that the board should have that information, but at least get the presentation to them so that they can sit down and digest it.
And we did not update the data. So if you find, well, Anthony, that's wrong. We have not gone through and updated that information, but I feel pretty confident it's probably 99% what it is on the piece of paper.
Any questions? Commissioner Good?
Yes, I've got a question for the town attorney. If we send our charter to Raleigh for a change in our elections, can the people in Raleigh change anything else in our charter at the time?
So as far as changing it, Anthony had the two slides. There's two different options, referendum, and then there's also an amendment by ordinance, which is the second slide, and that would allow essentially you to do it via ordinance, or you could also say, if we adopt this ordinance, it only becomes effective by vote of the people. Now, you'll see a note here at the bottom where it says optionally. So the people can always, by petition, require a referendum, and that's with 5,000 qualified votes. And then, even if you do something as far as changing your charter, you are correct. The General Assembly can undo it.
Other than this, it could be like paragraph 6 of our charter. They could go in there and make a change there.
They could, yes.
Okay, that's Pandora's box right there.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, just kind of following up on that though, but if I understood what our attorney just said, that if we do it amendment by ordinance enforceable upon the outcome of a vote, that does not open the charter?
So the first option is amendment by referendum. And essentially what you would do is you would adopt a resolution specifying the details of what's going to take place, what you want to change essentially, and you would have to send that resolution to the Board of Elections to conduct the election as described in the resolution that you adopt. They have certain notice requirements, et cetera, and there are certain times that you can actually have the referendum to change the charter. The second option is on the second slide, and that's in 160A 102. You could essentially adopt a resolution of intent to consider an ordinance amendment to the charter. And you have to follow, obviously, the public hearing requirements, notice requirements, et cetera. But you do not have to have a vote of the people unless you so choose. Now, after you've adopted the ordinance, you have to then give notice saying we've adopted this change to our charter via ordinance. And at that time, the people have 30 days to essentially petition a referendum and force it to the vote. I understand, I'm getting to your question.
Okay, sorry, good.
But I just want to make it perfectly clear that there are some distinctions between these two. One is a vote of the people only, one is an ordinance only with notice. The combined option is the ordinance with the referendum. And whenever you send something to the General Assembly, yes, they can essentially undo it, they can change other things, but typically they are not going to start trying to change things that you didn't initially try to initiate the change on.
But regardless,
That to say they're not going through, to my knowledge at least, town charters looking for things to change in their spare time.
right. But essentially, we make this change, it has to be a charter, and the General Assembly has to look at it. Okay. Point taken.
Anyone else?
Mayor, we'll make sure we share this information, send that out, Bobby. We'll make sure we get that out to everyone. We will sit tight because this will take some direction from the board on how we address this and whether you want to move forward in some direction. We'll be looking for direction from the board on that.
Well, and I would say after you get this information in front of you and you've had taken the time to digest it and kind of write down your questions, et cetera, work with Commissioner Phillips and see if there's some consensus one way or the other and give direction to Anthony so that he can either remove it from his plate or figure out what those next steps are. Okay?
I thought that's what we were going to do today. I mean, I think we've all seen this. Okay, well, you said, Anthony, you said there was you weren't expecting any direction tonight. I can tell you where I'm coming on this, and I'm not interested in changing this or sending our charter up to Raleigh. Thank you.
Just for clarification, I believe I understand the backstory of why you don't want to put the charter in front of NCGA. Can we elaborate for some of the new members as to why we may not want that?
You could start with the tree ordinance of Huntersville. We have a specific ordinance that I think it's Holly Bend and 2 other small towns that if we send this up to Raleigh, I'm sure they would change it.
Sorry, TIA might be another particular thing that's a little bit more specific to.
I was waiting for that. That would have been my closing statement.
All right, I'm sorry, but I just feel it's fair to Commissioner Partee and Commissioner Kovacs. They may be or may not be aware of some of the specifics of our charter that could be problematic.
And I would encourage the board to continue to have conversation around this offline so we can get through our items tonight. But again, make sure that you're, Ms. Luke?
Sorry, trying to make sure that I'm not on mute. I did just want to make one clarification, and that is that the charter itself is a little bit different than local legislation, so just keep that in mind.
And just let us know what information you need as a board, individuals. If you got questions, we can get that back to you, and then we will just wait to seek direction, but staff is not moving forward with this unless board gives us direction to. It will stay exactly as it is. I just want to be clear on that.
Absolutely.
So we'll move to 17. Consider revising the pay scale for mayor and commissioners. And I know maybe Jackie has a handout in front of you, and then we have some slides. We had had this discussion, I think, at the last session, and we just sort of provided information. When I say last session, last board that was sitting up here, we had some discussions on this, gathered some information on what several towns, what the mayor pay was, what the population, what the mayor pro tem, board members, and we have some general notes on the side, and gives you average. Jackie, you need this clicker to?
Don't need the pointer. paper that you have in front of you physically is the salary survey in the league performed that we would have had access to ballpark 10 months ago. If you look at Holly Springs, there's some data for Holly Springs that looks inaccurate because the board members make more than the mayor. And so noticing that there were issues in that, we put together that Excel document. If you look at the Excel document, it'll show you what the salaries were ballpark a year ago. The other attachment, Bobby, you just went to, is the league salary survey that's current, that came out in the last 2, 3, 4 months. I would say it's changed on average by a couple of $100. We've not vetted the data and cleaned it the way we did last year, but it's changed a little bit, not much.
And Mayor, what you'll see, and Board, this data is provided by their staff a lot of times to the league. So sometimes there's a fat finger and typo, and that's why you may see, well, some of these things that may be off. And so we will go back and a lot of times verify. If we see something that sticks out, we'll go back and check it. But as Jackie said, they're probably fairly similar.
I really feel like the average, on average, it's gone up roughly $200. I would concentrate, if you're going to look at this document, I would look more at the averages than the individuals, because I'm confident you'll find something that's illogical.
And then, so Jackie, I can't, I guess the first column, Bobby, is a little bit hidden. I can't see. The mayor is the first one, it looks like, I assume. So you can see what the average is and what Huntersville will say there, so you can see it. For the public is 14,000.
Yes, sir.
And then the average is 14,608. And these are population ranges from, what's the top?
25 to 100.
25 to 100,000 population range. This is straight out of the league, what they call the salary survey. And then for board members or mayor pro tem, you can see some have mayor pro tem, some don't. On these mayor pro tem, the average is 10,232, and ours is 8,500. And then on the board members, just so that everyone can see it on here. So for the board members, the average is 9,638, and ours is 8,000. So from an average standpoint, as you can tell, it's pretty average. We're well below the average. I didn't figure out a percentage and all that, but you can look at those real easy and see that we're below average on those, and it's a decision for the board to make. And if there's something that you want to change, then this is something that we probably need to do before we adopt a budget, even though
Thank
it's
you,
small.
Bobby. I wanted to point out, when we had to call to verify a couple of the numbers we didn't think looked right last year, there happens to be a couple of notes, maybe if there's a expense reimbursement, something, if we called them and they mentioned it, it should be in that notes column.
Commissioner Munger.
Jackie, do you recall the last time that our town board and mayor salaries were changed?
I do.
Not since I've been here.
I think
It was 2012.
2012? I'm hearing 2012.
Yep.
Okay, so it's 10 years. So just my quick thoughts. I'll own this. This is an object that, or an item that I put up there. It was discussed in previous board, and it's been 10 years since we changed it. What we're essentially looking at is trying to make this a more inclusive process. It takes a fair amount of money to run for this office, and we want to have a more diverse board, and we need to be able to pay them somewhat appropriate. And I say somewhat appropriate because even if we extend that number out, top of my head, if I said 18,000 for mayor, 16,000 for a mayor pro tem, 14,000 for a basic board member, you're still at a relatively low level. But just looking at this, I mean, I'm looking at, we're between Chapel Hill and Apex. Chapel Hill is hugely ahead of us. And I get it's not a competition, but I mean, Chapel Hill is almost exactly like us in that they're almost the exact same population. They are part of a larger metro area, but not necessarily the town. And to me, this is pretty straightforward, and realistically, you can't just budget a little bit. It has to be a momentum increase, simply because we're probably not going to look at this again for another 10 to 20 years. I mean, that's just the way it's going to work. So that's my opinion.
Commissioner Phillips?
So, last board, I was the one who brought this up, and I was very apologetic the whole time about bringing it up, but I'm not sorry that it's still a conversation. I met so many people over the last few years that would love to run for office and tell me they can't because they can't afford it. And that's unfortunate. There are really good people in this community who could serve, and they can't afford to do it. And I know people are sitting here thinking like, oh, we're going to line our own pockets and blah, blah, blah. I can tell you, I get paid hourly. Since I've been elected, I lose money every year. I don't mind doing it. I'm lucky I have the family I have that can pick up my slack. But what really hit me was I got Mayor Pro Tem, and my workload increased exponentially. But what happened with that is I will do the work. But the baby, Grace, went from being part-time daycare to full-time daycare. That's a lot of money. And I think about, I come from a family that's here. So my parents, grandparents, everybody can help with the kid. You think about even the people like Amber, who her family's finally moved here, but you think of the people who don't have family help here. And they don't have, they'll have to pay out of pocket for that. And one of the best people that could have ever been sitting up on this dais is a single mom that manages a store. And unfortunately, I could not talk her into running because she could not afford it. And I know this is a volunteer position, but the way the world and society is, unless you are independently wealthy or you are divorced, or not divorced, Lord. Well, if you're a divorcee and you got that bag, get it, girl. Well, retired, independently wealthy, or you have a spouse that can help offset the cost, you can't do it. That's not right. And serving our community should be for everybody, not just for those in the means.
Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. Would it be fast track, in order to fast track this conversation, and also can we look into possibly what I'm seeing here, a technology stipend? As we debate bumping up the commission salary, but is it easier for us to vote in a stipend overall and then discuss bumping up our salary? And I say that because being a newly elected commissioner, I didn't realize there were extra expenses such as printing out materials at my house at my own expense, telephone, travel. And I see there are other municipalities who have a stipend that they institute. And if $2,400 for $200 a month stipend for commissioners is not that much. It'll bump us up to $10,400. But I think that might be an easier track while we continue to discuss overall bumping up a salary for the commission.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Don't worry, Commissioner Munger, this was on my list as well, but because I had met some of those similar people that Commissioner Phillips mentioned, and people that when I talk to, I say, I wish you would run. I would love to work with you, and they'd say, I can't afford it. And I have 2 little kids at home. I'm very blessed with a saint of a husband that just he's there with the kids. But I think about the amount of hours that I do need to leave, and I leave to go do things, attend meetings, stuff like that. And if that was actually, if it did have a price tag on it for childcare, I don't think I would be able to be as effective of a commissioner as I am. And I would never want to have to make that choice between attending something or going to something that our residents want us to do, or staying home with my kids. So I definitely can see that. When I was looking at this list, there are 17 out of 29 of these local municipalities that make more than us, which is so crazy to see when you see how high we are on the list in population. So I thought that was pretty astounding to realize. But I am in support of however we do go about this, because 10 years is a long time. And I'm just here to do whatever we need to do.
Commissioner Boone? I saw the hand.
Commissioner Munger, we are not exactly like Chapel. We are not exactly like Chapel Hill. Okay. Their property tax is 54 cents, so I'm kind of getting a little warmer to this suggestion due to the fact that I filled my truck up with gasoline this morning, and it's really eye-opening. And as much as we go to these meetings and show the flag around town, it's getting expensive to be a commissioner. Thank you.
Well, I will just say this. I was on the board 10 years ago when they went from 5,000 to 8. I've served as a commissioner, I've served as mayor pro tem, and now as mayor. I can tell you that when we did that adjustment, when I was first elected, we were around the Mooresville size. So we were about 42,000 people at that point. The workload as the community does grow, does get larger. I do think that the board is spot on. Something does need to be adjusted. What that looks like, I don't know. I would say you might want to consider removing some of the, as far as the average is concerned, some of the, the 26,000 people. I think that needs to, you probably should look at the 50 to 99 if you're looking at a potential 10-year fix. I don't know what that number looks like. You'd have to do the numbers, Jackie. But you might want to consider looking at that as one option.
We should be able to do it right now, Mayor. And the reason we didn't do that is because
Is it
we had a
already done
source
below
that we
there,
could
Bobby?
point to, and we didn't want you to think we were skewing in any direction, but I'm sure we have that capability right now to do it for you. The other thing I would say, Mayor, is that, in previous places that I've worked in, board members, when they went to travel to these various meetings, turned in gas receipts. I see that at most places. I mean, I don't think that people elected you to drive to Raleigh on your car and your gas for free. That makes no sense to me at all.
And I've done it for 10 years.
Or for you to go, any of you, to drive around to do business and not turn in those receipts. So to me, if you're not going to turn in receipts, you should definitely look at this, because that makes no sense to me.
Is there any other discussion? Oh, you got the numbers there. Is there consensus around where you want to be? Do you want to kind of, I know that Commissioner Munger, you put, I didn't write it down, and I apologize, whatever you said.
They were just random numbers, really. It's
Yeah, I
just,
got nothing.
I'm open for anything, but
I don't know if you all want to take some time, digest it, and then come back. I think there's a lot of conversation around multitude of options, right? Because you could look at stipends in some form, and, I mean, the technology allowance isn't a lot.
sorry, I don't want to cut off.
Commissioner Boone?
Madam Mayor, I'll step up, and why don't you pick 2 other commissioners and let us sit down and work this thing out, and we'll have something back within the 14 days.
That's perfect, Commissioner Boone. Commissioner Munger, would you like to join that? Great. So
I'll join.
you two will,
And One
one more?
if you don't mind?
All right, Commissioner Partee.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, you'll bring something back in the next 14 days, Commissioner
I'm going to
Phillips.
throw this out. So stipend is one I'm not a fan of. Just go ahead and put it on there. So that's what the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County do. And it's pretty, they don't turn in receipts for anything, this, that, and the other, which they shouldn't have to. But it's almost like an extra layer of pay you never get accounted for. So my preference would personally be to just have a solid base pay and people know that's what we're getting versus things being tweaked and hidden and put in a way that's not as transparent. It's just, this is what I'm getting paid and that is that.
All right. So, any other comments around that? I'm not necessarily opposed either way myself. I think that I would like to see what the three of you bring back and recommend.
And I would say we'll produce multiple options.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts?
Mayor, if I can, I would like to skip 18, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting. The only reason I would like to do that is 26 is social districts, and not that I wouldn't have Chief and Emily, here at the next meeting, but this is a fresh topic that sort of came before you in Burkdale social districts. I know Cornelius has sort of looked at this, and we're not adopting any ordinances or asking you to adopt any ordinances, anything tonight. This is really to maybe seek some more direction on where we may go with this. Obviously, we'd have to bring stuff back to the board to adopt. I remember I did a poor job of a presentation at the last board meeting because I was not planning on doing that presentation, but we had some technical difficulties, so I had to sort of wing it. But if you recall, in Burkdale, what they're looking at is, and the statutes have changed to allow social districts where you can, walk around, potentially leave an establishment with a clear cup, and it has, I'm not going to get too far in the weeds, I'm going to try to give you a highlight. You can leave those establishments with a clear cup and take that out and drink alcohol. Obviously, you got to meet all the laws, you got to be of age, et cetera. And it's a sort of defined boundary, not a rope, it's not roped off, but, they would have signage, maybe on the sidewalk, could be on the walls, and you could go within those boundaries and partake of alcohol, still got to meet all the laws, et cetera. And that's the short overall version of it. And so we wanted to seek direction or some guidance on, would you like us to take this further and bring back, the necessary ordinances? And I'm sure you have questions for Emily and the chief, but this would be looking at a potential social district, defined social district. And Bobby may have on the presentation where the boundaries were actually. Do you have the rest of the PowerPoint? So the PowerPoint had defined boundaries that would be a part of that with signage and meet all those statutes. I don't know if Emily or Chief, you have anything to add here? I mean, ultimately, we just want to get some direction on where we go. Emily, anything to add?
No, I don't necessarily have anything to add. There are several steps, the ordinance. We'd also have to revise some of our current ordinances to carve out an exception. I believe we talked about the management plan that would also have to be put in place. We just need guidance as to whether or not you want staff to move forward and start drafting these things.
Quick question. The questions that the board had when that presentation occurred, did the board get the answers to those questions?
I think Mike sent back answers, if I recall. Mike Lant, I think it was, sent back answers to those questions. There were a few questions that he emailed back those answers.
I thought so. I just wanted to make sure the board got them and had reviewed them, and if they have additional questions. Commissioner Boone?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Europe has this all over Europe. They have social distancing where they have like little caps in the sidewalk where you're not supposed to go past that. And there's no signage. They seem like they police themselves, and it works very well. There's no signage, and I think this is something that specifically Burkdale Village would need.
Commissioner Phillips?
So Cornelius has already enacted this, and they're going to be having it on their St. Patrick's Day. And I think about how much revenue that's going to go to Cornelius versus Huntersville. And the thing is, people are going to drink. I have faith that people are going to drink responsibly. And I feel like this is something we should have already done. So I am for just, let's get it done already.
Commissioner Kovacs?
I agree. Actually, it came up at our Lake Norman Chamber meeting when Cornelius gave their update. But when they presented it, everyone in the room went, "Oh, great idea!" And they're all there as business owners, or and so from that standpoint, I think it's a great idea.
Anyone else?
I think it's a great idea also. It's a boon for our merchants here and our businesses, so everybody's going to benefit with this. So I think it's a great idea.
Commissioner Munger?
Sounds like we have consensus. Let's move forward.
Agreed. There you go.
I think we got clear direction to move forward, and obviously there's stuff that needs to come back to you. We'll be working with Burkdale to fine tune what we need to bring back to you, and Emily, myself, and the chief will be working through that.
All right, well, we have 15 minutes, so let's go ahead and take a pause for the board, and we will resume at 6 o'clock.